Training session. I'm on the line today live with Adrian Johnson, who is actually the co-founder for Una Brands. So good to have you on the call, Adrian.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Good. I've got some questions here, Adrian, but before we jump into questions, maybe just tell sort of people a little bit about your company and what you do and how you help Amazon sellers.
Yeah, of course. So I'm one of the co-founders of Una Brands. We buy and grow small e-commerce businesses. So we buy businesses in Australia and across the region that have revenue of greater than about 500,000 Aussie dollars per year and less than about 10 million Aussie dollars per year. And we typically will purchase 100% of the equity for a kind of lump sum payout. But then the sellers will remain engaged and involved and participate in the upside of their business going forward through a kind of profit share mechanism. We've just closed a very big kind of funding round in Australia. So we've raised 50 million Aussie dollars to purchase businesses in Australia, and we're looking to spend that over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. So looking to purchase around kind of 20 businesses or so in the region.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, and that's insane. So $50 million you have essentially in your kitty to buy Amazon businesses.
Yes, it's burning a hole in our pocket. If any of your listeners are owners of brands, particularly Amazon brands, but also brands selling on WooCommerce and Shopify and other platforms, then we would love to hear from them. We are in the market and very active.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I've got some questions here, so let's just dive right into it. Just in terms of valuation, because this is a common question we often sort of get asked when it comes to people thinking about selling their Amazon business. How are FBA businesses valued?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's two components to evaluation. There is the profitability of the business, and then there's a multiple which is applied to the profitability. And so we think about those two parts separately. So the way we think about the profitability is what we call the SDE, or the seller's discretionary earning. And that's basically the profit of the business without taking into account any fees any kind of salary that the seller is drawing down from the business themselves. And we look at the trailing 12-month profitability of the business. And then you've got the multiple. And the multiple, there's probably 25 different factors that go into our calculation of what multiple to apply to the profitability. It's things like how long has the business been operating? You get more points if you've been operating for greater than 2 years, for example, or things like how many SKUs do you have? Typically, the fewer SKUs, the better, because it means it's a more simple business for us to take over and operate and grow. In terms of what those multiples, what people can expect in terms of those multiples. So the multiples have increased over the last year. The most recent Empire Flippers report just came out on the state of the industry, and it put the current multiple at around 2.9 times the profitability. So what does that look like as an example? So if a business had a revenue of, say, $1 million and it had a profitability without accounting for the seller's salary of maybe 200,000 Aussie dollars, then at 2.9 times, you could expect to receive kind of 500 and something K, 580K for that business.
Right. Okay. Is that so? It does the multiples that you kind of based on that. Is it like based on the 2.9? Is what you said?
Precisely.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay. Awesome. And with your inventory, how was that sort of valued? With, like, let's say you had 1,000, 2,000 units in stock. Like, how do you value that inventory?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because some sellers will say to us, I've just done a massive stock up. Like, it's a bit unfair that I'm handing all of this inventory over. Well, so it doesn't actually work like that, because the inventory is valued totally separately from the valuation of the business. And so the way we look at it is that there's a certain amount of inventory that's needed to run the business on a kind of ongoing basis. And there are various ways of calculating that. But then any inventory over and above that amount is valued in addition to the business. The kind of analogy that we use is kind of like buying a torch. Like if you bought a torch, you would expect it to come with the batteries to operate the torch. But if it came with 50 additional batteries that's going to last you for another year, then you'd be willing to pay extra for those
100%.
additional batteries.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now, if there's people thinking about preparing their business and looking to sell their business, are there things that you can do to sort of prepare your business so it's more enticing for companies just like yourself?
Yeah, there certainly are. So there are some things which are very simple things for people to do, like making sure you've cleaned up all of the accounts so that everything is segregated out is crucially important. It sounds like a simple thing, but a number of businesses where somebody's got 5 different businesses going into one account, plus their personal credit
preschool
card.
fees
Exactly.
and insurance. Yeah, okay.
And you're then trying to tease out, was this expense related to this business or this business? And it becomes very, very complicated and difficult for everybody involved. So making sure that everything is clean is the first step. Secondly, we really encourage sellers to use tools like A2X, like Seller Board, so that when it comes to the valuation of the business, it's super easy to track the P&L and to get an accurate calculation of the P&L. On top of that, it just helps business owners with the management of their businesses, and usually is a great way to increase the growth of the business. It goes without saying that something like Xero or QuickBooks is a must when it comes to selling your business. So certainly, we would expect a business to be using one of those accounting software. But then, so that's kind of the hygiene of the business, you might call it. Mm-hmm. On top of that, one of the things that we look for in a business, one of the questions that we ask a seller when we buy a business is how many hours do you spend on the business per week? And the lower the number, the better, as far as we're concerned. And so there's a whole bunch of things that sellers can do to automate their business and streamline their business, so that when they hand it over, it's a very easy business for us to integrate and into our platform. So engaging BAs to take some of the more routine administrative tasks, and they pay for themselves typically over and over. Utilizing various technology platforms, inventory management and supply chain management platforms to automate that side of the business can be really, really helpful. And then there's one of the areas that people sometimes are a little surprised by is that when people go to sell their business, they often think, okay, well, I'm going to need to launch into all of these marketplaces to make my business worth more and launch all these products. Actually, for us, we much prefer more simple businesses, and actually a business that has all of these, thousands of products with very low revenue and lots of different marketplaces just can overcomplicate a business, and can actually not be great for the valuation of the business. So
simple is better.
Simple is better.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Without getting into too much detail, I know, if you have patents and your own patents or brand registry and trademarks, right? These things can obviously make your business a little bit more valuable. Are there any other things that make your business more valuable?
Yeah, I think so. We certainly any patents that a company has certainly increases the value of the business for us. I think that one of the things that we look at when we buy a business is what is the category that the product is in, and is that category growing? For us, there are certain categories that we focus on in particular. So we particularly like kind of home and living products, kitchen, pets, outdoors, those types of kind of staple products. If a product sells 80% of their sales over Christmas, for us that's can be damaging to the valuation that we put on the business, because it's a more risky and more volatile cash flow. There are certain categories that we would that we ourselves stay away from, and that's not to say that all acquirers stay away from these. You can certainly find people who will buy these businesses, but we stay away from fashion, because the return rates are incredibly high, and keeping up with the fashion trends can be difficult, and they're pretty volatile. We stay away from electronics because again, pretty high return rates, and also The kind of R&D cycle in there can be expensive. If they're very simple electronics, then we'll do them. So we're currently buying a clock company, but typically complex electronics we stay away from. And we also stay away from supplements for a number of reasons. One, the regulatory burdens around that can be pretty intense. Two, you typically find it's one of those categories that for whatever reason seems to have a lot of black hat techniques going on. So yeah, we stay away from supplements as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. Are there any okay, so you sort of just outlined what you're kind of looking for. I think a lot of our students tend to sort of gravitate towards those as well. So outdoors homeware, so that'd be kitchen, pets, babies, that sort of home fitness is sort of that. It is a pretty good sort of staple as well, which is cool. Awesome. What's I've got another question here. How does the size of my business affect the selling process?
Yeah, sure. So in general, the larger the business, the higher the multiple. As I said, the average multiple that was recorded last year was around 2.9 times the profitability. If your business is much smaller than that, if you're turning over say $500,000, then you might expect a multiple more around the kind of 2-time mark. If it's I'd say once you get to the $1 million revenue, the multiple stabilizes probably all the way up to about kind of $6 or $7 million revenue, and then after that point, the multiple would increase. So if you're doing $10 million revenue, you might well expect a kind of 4 times multiple, closer to the 3.5, 4 times multiple.
Yeah, right. That's so exciting, Adrian. It's so exciting listening to this. It's fantastic. All right, so let's say someone was interested in selling the business and they've approached you. You've agreed on a price. I mean, what is the process after the price has been sort of agreed on?
Yeah, sure. So we will typically do what we call a sprint DD, which is a 1-week due diligence where we will assess all of the components of the business on a high level, and that will enable us to come up with a valuation.
Yes.
After the valuation has been agreed in the form of a letter of intent, we would then do a more detailed due diligence, which is a 3-week phase where we look into the business in a lot more detail. And what I mean by that is, we'll call up all of the suppliers. We will look at all of the purchase orders for all of your inventory. We will look through all of the reviews and kind of do our own assessments of whether there's kind of anything we should be aware of in terms of black hat or anything like that. And also get a better understanding of the processes of the business, so that when we take it over, we have all of the information to kind of hit the ground running. So that takes about 3 weeks, and then at the end of the 3 weeks, the deal will close and the money will transfer into the seller's account. After that point, there's then another kind of 6-week phase of transfer of the business over to us. And sometimes that can be a very quick process, depending on the complexity of the business. As I say, it can take up to kind of 6 weeks to transfer everything over. It's at that phase that we will also do very detailed discussions with the seller about growth plans for the business. Because one of the big motivators for sellers to sell their business to Unibrands is the potential for really turbocharging the growth in the business. And as Unibrands, we bring capability in terms of capital that we can invest in the business, in terms of capability in terms of the supply chain and the operations. But what the seller really has is a detailed understanding of the product and the customer needs of that product. And so we really value when the sellers are actually interested to work with us post acquisition. And the way that can work is through a kind of consulting agreement. A lot of sellers choose to stay on board in a kind of consulting capacity, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, where they get to work only on the things that typically are the most enjoyable parts of the business anyway, like product launches and building a community and the things that quite often are the reasons why people get into becoming a seller in the first place, before they get bogged down with all of the inventory management and the other parts of the business.
That's great. Yeah. And I think it's a great idea to keep sort of I mean, I would imagine a lot of sellers who have a personal sort of relationship with their products and have been selling it for a number of years would love to stick on and even help grow the brand a little bit more. It's like their little baby in a way.
That's exactly it, and that's the kind of purpose of the profit share model as well. So typically, the offer that we make has a couple of different components. You have the base purchase price, which is paid up front. You then have the inventory paid on top, any excess inventory paid on top, and you then have this profit share piece. And this profit share, and the way that is structured is that the seller will receive a percentage of any increased profitability for a fixed period of time after the close of the deal, which means that for say 2 or 3 years after the deal has closed, the seller gets to participate in the upside. And so that's obviously motivation, provides motivation as well to remain engaged with us in terms of the consulting piece. And it's only right if somebody is contributing to the business that they get to participate in that upside.
Awesome. Well, all right. And last question I've got for you, which is a bit of a techie question. How do you migrate? Because that's a common question I suppose people ask is how do you sort of take the business and transfer it to you? So what's your migration process?
Yeah, sure. So the migration process is a little bit of a technical process. It depends what the platform is that we're migrating. The one that we migrate most commonly is the Amazon FBA migration. Although obviously we do kind of Shopify and eBay and all the rest. But with the Amazon migration, the process typically takes about a week. There's a kind of stage that you do on day 1, a stage on day 3, and a stage on day 5. And there are a couple of different ways you can do it. You can either migrate the ASINs. This is typically the most painful way of doing it, and we prefer not to do it that way because you then bump into inventory limits and various other things. Or you can transfer the business. If you buy the business as a whole, then you get the Seller Central account directly. Mm-hmm. Or you can transfer the Seller Central account, and that's the way that we prefer to do it. And it comes with a bit of risk because Amazon, as everybody knows, is very trigger happy and they love shutting down Seller Central accounts. So yeah, we've developed a process which is a kind of fail-safe process, and we have very close relations with Amazon to make sure that process will go through fine. But as I said, it takes about a week to go through that process.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of similar to a lot of people do it that way as well. They transfer accounts and migrate that across. Well, that sounds great, Adrian. Listen, I want to thank you for your time because I know you're a very busy person. I want to say thanks also for jumping on today's session as well. And so, how do people find out about you? Like, I'll put the website up here, guys, right now. So it's una-brands.com. That's correct, isn't it, Adrian?
That's right. Yep. Una spelled U-N-A. Is that correct?
So yeah, so una-brands.com. I'll put it up here on the video for you guys. And is there is there a good way to contact you, or do you have some sort of?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, people can reach me directly on my email address, which is adrian@una-brands.com. We're currently actually offering a referral fee as well for introduction to any business that we go on to acquire, of 1% of the transaction fee. So if you know of anybody who is interested in acquisition, for example, if that was a $5 million deal, then the referral fee will be $50,000. So a reasonably sizable referral. For that, we're not asking anybody to kind of promote us or recommend us or anything like that. It's purely just for an introduction. So yeah, do get in touch if either you or anybody you know is interested in acquisition.
Fantastic. All right, guys, you have the email address there. I'll put that on the screen as well. Thanks again, Adrian. Much appreciated for your time today. And hopefully talk to you all soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
See you, Adrian. Bye, mate.